Since the time of Joseph, God had blessed the land of Egypt, and while Joseph was alive, the children of Israel had been well treated. But now, 430 years later, the children of Israel were slaves. They were cruelly beaten and abused. In their suffering, the children of Israel cried out to God, asking Him to save them from their bondage. God heard their cries, and He sent Moses to give His message to Pharaoh. "Let my people go," Moses told him. But Pharaoh refused to let the slaves go free. Moses warned Pharaoh that God would send 10 terrible plagues to destroy Egypt if he did not release the slaves. But Pharaoh's heart was hard. He said, "Who is God that I should obey Him?" Pharaoh was proud, and he didn't believe in God. God would have to punish Pharaoh and Egypt. He would send 10 terrible plagues, and that is what it would take for Pharaoh to change his mind. First, God turned all the rivers and streams into blood. Every river and pond was affected. Even the water pots in the Egyptians' homes were filled with blood. God did this to show that He alone is God. All of the idols of Egypt were fakes. But Pharaoh wouldn't listen, so God sent a plague of frogs upon the land of Egypt. Frogs were everywhere. There were even frogs in the Egyptians' food. Again, Pharaoh refused to let the children of Israel go, so God plagued Egypt with lice. Moses struck the dust of the ground, and clouds of lice rose out of the dust. But Pharaoh still refused to free the slaves, so God sent biting flies to torment Egypt. Still, Pharaoh didn't listen to God. Instead, he made the slaves suffer more. So Yahweh also made the plagues worse. God sent disease upon Egypt's cattle. Many valuable animals died, but Pharaoh was very proud and still refused to obey. So God sent a plague of boils upon the Egyptians. Oozing sores covered Pharaoh and the slave masters. Egypt suffered for Pharaoh's pride, and when the Egyptians prayed to their false gods, they couldn't help them. God was saying, "Look unto me and be saved." The plagues reached skyward as God brought down a supernatural storm. Hail fell, which was the size of a talent. In modern weights, each hailstone weighed about 60 kilograms or 130 pounds. The 8th plague was locust upon the land of Egypt. Swarms of locusts came, blotting out the sun. Everything surviving the hail was eaten. Yet in spite of all this, Pharaoh still stubbornly ignored God. Then God took away the sun. Egypt gave the sun god credit for giving them life. But when the Egyptians saw that Yahweh was powerful enough to shut out the sun, they trembled and begged Pharaoh to listen to God. They begged him to release the slaves, but it would take one more plague to change Pharaoh's mind. On the night of Passover, Moses warned them that the death angel would stalk the land. Every firstborn son would be slain. But even on that terrifying night, no one needed to die. Moses told the people to offer a lamb for Passover. They were told to put its blood on the doorposts of their houses. And when the death angel saw the blood on the doorposts, he left everyone inside that house unharmed. The Passover lamb pointed to Christ, heaven's lamb. But in the homes where the Egyptians stubbornly refused to obey God, the life of their oldest son was snuffed out that night. Pharaoh lost his own son. Finally, the children of Israel were allowed to go free. They praised God and followed Moses out of Egypt at midnight on Passover. Their terrible slavery was ended. God was taking them home to the Promised Land.